when it comes to Islamism, group rights have precedence. It's the interest of the Ummah, or those who believe, the tribe of believers. Value lies with the family and the honor. On the other side, liberalism, it's all about human life, the individual, regardless of their sex, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their age. That's what we need to protect. And in liberal societies that actually take themselves seriously, we protect the rights of minorities.
First of all, good evening. I'm really surprised that you are not all asleep already. You must be desperate for truth tonight. But the truth of today is not as the truth of yesterday. I'm not expert on the topic. I have lived it. The Islamic, what's so-called Islamic Sharia is basically the Islamic law. People say Sharia law. It's like adding, it's the same term, basically. Sharia means law. It's the Islamic legislation. And basically, it's concerned of details that paralyze the individual and their creativity and their ability to be intelligent and to think, to doubt, to create. You have to follow those set of rules. Like, for example, which leg you enter the bathroom. Is it the right one or the left one?
Four fearless voices: Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Somalia's escaped child bride; Mosab Hassan Youssef, former Hamas insider and son of one of the organization's co-founders, Douglas Murray; and Dr. Daniel Pipes, unite to tackle Islam's collision with Western democracy. While politicians dance around cultural sensitivity, these experts expose hard truths about Sharia law's compatibility with modern freedom. No sugarcoating, no apologies, just raw facts about Islam's struggle with democracy. Buckle up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to meet you. My name is David Shuriani. I am a Hungarian international lawyer and Middle East researcher, and I'm particularly honored to be here with our guests, Mrs. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Mosab Hassan Youssef, Mr. Douglas Murray, and Dr. Daniel Pipes. You already met them today. Some of them had a lecture today, and you're going to meet the rest of them in the upcoming days. Our topic today is a hard one, but we don't have much time. So we're going to talk about a few pivotal questions in the beginning, and when we are through with that, we're going to give the floor to the audience, and if you have questions, please address it to the particular person whom you want to address it to. And we wish you a good night and enjoy. So, first of all, considering the considerable misunderstandings and stereotypes and how should I put it, ignorance concerning the subject of Sharia and its compatibility with democracy. In the beginning, we will have, each of our guests will have a few minutes of preliminary notions, and then we're gonna address altogether four basic subjects concerning this issue. And then after that, we're gonna have some questions from the audience. So first, just to start from my left side, I will give the floor to Ayaan, and please give your thoughts, your initial thoughts to us.
Watch as this star-studded panel of Islam's most formidable critics assembles, including Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who fled forced marriage in Somalia, and Douglas Murray, whose The Strange Death of Europe sold 250,000 plus copies. They're here to discuss democracy's compatibility with Sharia, a system that still permits honor killings in 13 countries. Isn't it fascinating how we're debating whether a 7th century legal code that mandates death for apostasy can mesh with individual rights? Tell me more about this peaceful coexistence.
Thank you very much. I realize how late it is in the day. If we were in America, we would call this a fireside chat. So I'll be very quick. There are a number of people here who are going to run you through the nuances of things. So I think I'm going to start with an unnuanced perspective. Rough and quick. There is Islam, and derived out of Islam is a system of government that is pushed by people we have come to call Islamists. My friend Majid Nawaz speaks of Islamism. So what I'd like to do to answer your question is to say, take the Islamism versus liberalism. Liberalism, as I have come to understand and appreciate, not liberalism as, say, someone like wonderful people in the United States of America called Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders, and the way they understand. It's a different kind of liberalism. That's not the liberalism I'm talking about. I'm talking about the liberalism of John Stuart Mill, John Locke, that type of classical liberalism. Islamism versus liberalism. Are they compatible? I am of the mind that they are incompatible. Islamism demands submission to God's will above all else.
We're comparing Islamism, where 13 countries still stone adulterers to death, with liberalism. A Pew Research study shows 84% of Pakistani Muslims support making Sharia official law. Meanwhile, Iran's morality police murdered Mahsa Amini for showing her hair. But sure, let's pretend this medieval system pushing for global caliphate is just another political ideology. Remind me again how many democracies exist in the 57 OIC member states.
There is an emphasis on the afterlife. There is an emphasis on commanding right and forbidding wrong. Liberalism emphasizes reason and science. The emphasis is on life here and now. And if you're a true liberal, you apply critical thinking and you come to your convictions in a reasoned way. That's one big difference. The second big difference is on Islamism, on the Islamism side of the equation, there is no such a thing as freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. No, no, no. You submit to the will of God, and if you just happen to think things that are contrary to what Islamic scripture prescribes, then you are guilty of blasphemy and you're condemned. Critical thinking is discouraged if it is contrary to God's will, to Muhammad's legacy. On the liberal side of the equation, we value freedom of speech. We debate and we doubt, and debate and doubt are encouraged. And progress and innovation is not only encouraged, it's celebrated. On the Islamism side of the equation, not only is blasphemy and apostasy punishable by death.
While Silicon Valley launches rockets, Saudi Arabia finally let women drive in 2018. How progressive. In Pakistan, a 2021 survey found 75% support death for apostasy. The Muslim world, with 24% of global population, has produced just 3 Nobel Prize winners in sciences, while tiny Israel, with 0.2% of world population, has 12. But hey, Who needs innovation when you've got 7th century perfect wisdom? Anyone fancy discussing evolution in Cairo University?
The way to get your arguments across is through dawah or indoctrination. And if you refuse to accept those, the Jews have done that, Christians have done that, then they are relegated to second-class citizens, if not altogether obliterated. On the liberal side, liberalism side of the equation, we say, well, all religions are equal, whatever. The state does not promote any religion over any other religion, and religions are seen in context, the doctrines, etc. Very often, as you see in Europe, they're even mocked. On the Islamism side of the equation, and this is just to wake you up, it's been always cruel and unusual punishment is something human and universal. But in Islamism, there is a justification for that. The beheading, the amputations, etc. Punishments such as stoning and flogging, and even slavery is permitted, as long as you're doing things according to God's law. On the liberalism side of the equation, torture, inhumane punishments, that's condemned. Slavery is abolished. Individuals have autonomy over their own body and over their own sexuality. And in fact, we've had a long-standing debate over the death penalty, and I think some states in the United States haven't adopted them, but in general, you will find most liberals saying the death penalty should be removed.
While the West debates pronouns, ISIS sold 7,000 Yazidi women in modern slave markets. Fun fact, Mauritania, an Islamic state, didn't criminalize slavery until 1981 and still has 500,000 enslaved people today. Saudi Arabia's last legal slave was freed in 1962. Meanwhile, Brunei's Sharia law prescribes stoning for gay sex. But remember, folks, all cultures are equally valid. Anyone fancy a holiday in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan?
When it comes to Islamism, group rights have precedence. It's the interest of the Ummah, or those who believe, the tribe of believers. Value lies with the family and the honor. On the other side, liberalism, it's all about human life, the individual, regardless of their sex, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their age. That's what we need to protect. And in liberal societies that actually take themselves seriously, we protect the rights of minorities. I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Ayan. I will ask the historian of the panel, Dr. Daniel Pipes, to respond to that and give your initial thoughts in this regard.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be in Hungary, where there's no danger of being deplatformed. If you know that verb, to be deplatformed means to be thrown off of social media or thrown out of the hotel room that you have booked. So glad to be here, and we can speak freely about Islam and democracy. Now, the impression exists that Muslims suffer disproportionately from non-democratic governments, tyrants, dictators, unelected presidents, kings, emirs, and various other strongmen. Is this accurate? Well, it is. A careful analysis some years ago by a scholar named Frederick Pryor of Swarthmore College found that in all but the poorest countries, quote, Islam is associated with fewer political rights. So this is the ground base for the problem. There is a lack of democracy among Muslims.
Of 49 Muslim-majority countries, Freedom House classifies just 3 as free. In Pakistan, 1,000 women die yearly in honor killings, while Afghanistan bans girls from secondary education. The World Bank reports Muslim-majority nations average 18% female labor participation, versus 50% globally. But surely it's Islamophobic to mention that 91% of honor killings worldwide are committed by Muslims? How's that religion of peace working out for minorities?
That the religion of Islam, their common factor, is itself incompatible with democracy. But history is full of surprises. May I remind you that as late as 1892, Germans were described as obscure and impractical dreamers. As late as the 1960s, it was held that Jews do not fight. Confucianism for many centuries was seen as inimical to economic growth. My point is that just as in these cases, because something is obvious today does not mean it'll be true tomorrow. I'm a historian, and the historian studies change over time. Time could find things different. Muslims today indeed groan under dictatorships, but one day they could be model democrats. Further, Islam can be interpreted in many ways, and there's nothing about it that immutably contradicts democracy. That said, there are deep and extensive changes that have to precede such a shift. Today's Muslim predicament reflects historical circumstances more than the innate features of Islam. That's my central point. Today's Muslim predicament reflects historical circumstances more than the innate features of Islam. For example, the tensions between the Muslim world and the West. Put differently, Islam, like all pre-modern religions, is undemocratic in spirit. No less than the other major religions, however, it has the potential to evolve in a democratic direction. This won't be easy. Let me cite to you the Christian case. The battle to limit the Catholic Church's political role lasted for a painfully long time.
Nice fairy tale about Islamic reform. The moderate Indonesian province of Aceh publicly canes LGBTQ individuals. Since 2000, Turkey, once secular, has built 17,000 new mosques while closing hundreds of schools. Christianity underwent reformation in 1517. Islam's waiting 500 years later. When exactly is this magical democratization happening?
The transition began when one of my favorite thinkers of all time, Marsilio of Padua, published his Defensor Pashas in the year 1324, just about the time this Buddha began, the castle of Buddha began. It took another 6 centuries after 1324 for the Catholic Church finally to reconcile itself fully to democracy. So if it took the Catholic Church 6 centuries, why should it be faster, easier, smoother for Muslims? To render Islam consistent with democratic ways will require profound changes in the interpretation of Islam. In particular, as Ayan just pointed out, the Sharia lies at the core of the problem. Developed over a millennium ago, it presumes autocratic rulers and submissive subjects. It emphasizes God's will over popular sovereignty and encourages violent jihad to expand Islam's borders. Further, it undemocratically, or even anti-democratically, privileges Muslims over non-Muslims, males over females, and free persons over slaves. For Muslims to build fully functioning democracies, they basically must reject the Sharia's public aspects. Ataturk forcefully did that in Turkey a century ago, but others have offered more subtle approaches. You heard Ayan speak earlier today about the Mecca and Medina qualities of Islam. A Sudanese thinker by the name of Mahmoud Muhammad Taha came up with the idea that Islam should be restricted to its Meccan ideas and it should throw out the Medinan ideas, that is to say, no more Sharia.
Speaking of Islamic progress, Muslim-majority countries produce 1.8% of global scientific papers, despite having 24% of world population. Islamic banking's prohibition of interest has left 85% of Muslims unbanked. Christian populations in Middle East dropped from 20% to 4% since 1950. The top 50 global universities 0 from Muslim nations. But hey, they're great at memorizing 7th century texts. Anyone wondering why 23% of Nobel laureates are Jewish?
Ataturk's efforts and Taha's ideas imply that Islam is ever-evolving, and to see it as unchanging is a great mistake. My favorite expression of this is from the Egyptian philosopher Hassan al-Hanafi, who said that the Quran, quote, is a supermarket where one takes what one wants and leaves what one doesn't want, unquote. Islam's problem is less its being anti-modern than the fact that the process of modernization of Islam has hardly begun. Muslims can modernize their religion, but that will take a lot of work. 1, it means no more waging jihad to impose Muslim rule. 2, no second-class citizenship for non-Muslims. 3, no death sentences for blasphemy, and so on. On the other hand, it requires individual freedom, civil rights, political participation, popular sovereignty, equality before the law, representative elections, and the like. Now, several obstacles stand in the way of achieving these changes. Perhaps the most significant is the Islamist movement, which has become so strong in the past 50 years. It seeks the opposite of reform and modernization. Namely, it seeks to reassert the Sharia in its entirety. The most spectacular expression of this was ISIL, Daesh in the last few years in Syria and Iraq and elsewhere. These jihadis may spell out their goal more forcefully and directly than others, but they all have the same goal. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the president of Turkey, has the same goal ultimately as ISIS, though he goes for it in a much less extreme way. Islamists respond in 2 ways to democracy. First, they denounce it as un-Islamic.
Meanwhile, reformist Muslims like Nasr Abu Zaid were forced to flee Egypt for suggesting the Quran was metaphorical. In 2021, Indonesia's most prominent moderate Islamic organization declared cryptocurrency haram. Bangladesh's moderate government just sentenced 150 people to death for insulting Islam. But sure, let's pretend Erdogan's neo-Ottoman dreams are fundamentally different from ISIS's caliphate fantasies, just with better PR.
For example, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna, considered democracy to be a betrayal of Islamic values. The Brotherhood theoretician, Said Qutb, rejected popular sovereignty, as do Abu Ala al-Maududi, founder of Pakistan's Jamaat-e-Islami. Yusuf al-Qaradawi, the current sage of the Muslim Brotherhood, has argued that elections are heretical. Despite this scorn for democracy, however, point 1, now point 2, Islamists are eager to use elections to attain power and have proven themselves to be very agile and able vote-getters. Even a terrorist organization like Hamas has won elections. This record does not show that the Islamists are democratic, but it indicates their tactical flexibility. As Erdogan himself put it, democracy is like a streetcar. When you come to your stop, you get off. So hard work can one day make Islam democratic. In the meanwhile, Islamism represents the world's leading anti-democratic force that must be fought and defeated.
Thank you, Daniel. Coming from a radical Muslim background, I think Mosab Hassan Youssef has a special perspective to the issue. And would you please share your preliminary thoughts with us?
I don't know about special perspective. First of all, good evening. I'm really surprised that you are not all asleep already. You must be desperate for truth tonight. But the truth of today is not as the truth of yesterday. I'm not expert on the topic. I have lived it. The Islamic, what's so-called Islamic Sharia is basically the Islamic law.
Democracy is like a streetcar, indeed. Just ask Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood. Win election, impose Sharia, get overthrown. Or Iran's democracy, where candidates must be approved by religious clerics. Taliban promised moderation in 2021. Now girls can't attend school. In Malaysia, 60% of Muslims support making Sharia official law. Funny how Islamists love democracy right until they win. Then it's back to 7th century rules. One vote, one time.
Is basically the Islamic law. People say Sharia law. It's like adding, it's the same term, basically. Sharia means law. It's the Islamic legislation. And basically, it's concerned of details that paralyze the individual and their creativity and their ability to be intelligent and to think, to doubt, to create. You have to follow those set of rules. Like, for example, which leg you enter the bathroom. Is it the right one or the left one? Which leg you leave the bathroom? Like, for example, a Muslim has to enter the bathroom with his left leg. And a Muslim has to leave the bathroom with his left leg, not his right leg. This is the Islamic law. Are we really discussing this 7th century garbage tonight and staying up late for this kind of crap? You know, it's really crazy. But I don't know, there must be like great fear behind this. And we are afraid that the Islamic law is going to replace democracy. And actually, I don't know who compared democracy to the Islamic law and afraid that the Islamic law is going to take over the Western democracy. Well, first of all, the Western democracy already failed of solving the human condition, that we don't see things for what they are. And I doubt that the majority of the free world will agree for the Islamic law to take over. So, first of all, I don't see a threat.
While Europe debates bathroom etiquette, UK now has 85 Sharia courts operating parallel to British law. Sweden's feminist government allows child marriages for migrants citing cultural considerations. In Birmingham, UK, 21 schools investigated for imposing Islamic rules. In London's East End, 40% want Sharia law implemented. Forget which foot to use in the bathroom, how about addressing honor killings in European capitals? Ayaan Hirsi Ali and her fearless panel didn't just tiptoe around the clash between Islam and democracy, they stomped on it with steel-toed boots. From honor killings and apostasy laws to Sharia courts in the UK, they exposed how a 7th century legal system collides with modern freedoms. So, any thoughts on what the panel just discussed? Share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss any of our future debates.